did that.
If
If there's anyone in chat, welcome. Thank you for joining us. As you can
yeah,
tell, we are complete Twitch amateurs,
we absolutely are. I'm ashamed. I'm so sorry.
and I have no idea what the frickety frack I'm doing.
No,
Uh,
I'm the sort of person who like I hibernate for like 9 months and I work on a game and I pop my head out and I'm like, hello, please buy it. Oh no,
right,
now I have to learn how to use Twitch and all these other things. I
right.
just want to make art. Yeah.
It used to be so simple. You
Yeah,
just like sit in a basement and make a game, and then someone pays you money for it, and they do the manufacturing and the boxing and the shipping, and
exactly. And before then, you just like got a patron and then you could make your own games in the Renaissance or whatever. It
yep,
was dead easy,
yep,
except horrifically impossible to game as a system.
yeah.
And you probably had to be sexy or something to make people take notice of you.
So, if you're here, give us a shout out. Write in
Yeah.
chat, I suppose, if that's a thing you can do. If that's a thing I can see.
Because right now we think, and bear in mind we don't do this very often, but we think that it's just us two watching, which
Just
is yeah,
chatting to each other,
just having a chat.
which is fine. I'm okay with this.
I'm okay with this too. I mean, we don't get to chat as much just about shooting the shit as
No.
as we would like. We're very work focused, and that's been necessary making this game. But it's nice to just have some downtime now and then.
Yeah, sure is. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're just gonna
Yeah.
hang out here and wait for anyone to show up if they ever
Mm-hmm.
do.
Exactly.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
The Kickstarter's been going well so far.
it sure
We're very
has.
excited about that. We're very humbled by the response.
Incredibly so.
Yeah, we clearly have a lot of people who really believe in us, which is a really nice feeling, actually. We're very grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to know that there are more added to those ranks than just me and you. Because I believe in us.
Exactly. I believe in us too. It's just the world is a big and scary place with, lots of competition. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Very true.
yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I've been working so hard on just like getting the Kickstarter ready and making the build.
yeah, that has been
That
the focus for like what the last month. About we've kind of just
yeah,
abandoned all work on the game itself for the most part.
yeah. If you think of the game as like the characters and the writing and the stuff that actually makes it, you know, this game rather than just a technical project, we haven't worked on the game, the actual character bits for ages.
Yeah,
We've just
yeah,
been like, making, tweaking, and polishing, and getting all the backeteers ready, and doing all the Kickstarter stuff, and getting our ducks in a row, and that's
yeah.
fine.
It's an important part of the work for sure.
It is, it is. And as much as I wish that, like, oh, it would just all happen magically, like, I accept this is the price you pay for being independent, and I'm fine with that.
Right.
But like, I do sometimes feel like, oh, I have this game that I would love for it to be this game that's about like talking about the difficulties of living under capitalism and what it's like to live in a situation where people don't consider you fully human, and that's a really huge like thing to be talking about.
Yeah, this
And
is not light content.
no,
What we're doing.
and we don't take it lightly either.
No, of course.
But I always like over the last month I felt like, oh my god, can I actually do this? Because all I've been doing for the past month is Kickstarter stuff,
Yeah.
making pretty images and making sure that the build doesn't like give people a seizure when they look at the interface because it's flickering, because apparently Linux has a different rendering system to Windows. And it's like those are all totally valid things to be doing and to be solving, but it feels like it's taken us away from the core of the designing of the game.
Yeah.
And so I have faith in the fact that we're going to get back to that.
Well, we'll have to at some point.
It's like we got to make the rest of the game. Oh shit!
We don't really have much of a choice.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess I have faith in the fact that even though it might not be a thing that can occupy space in my head right now, because I'm currently in like marketing mode, at some point we'll get back to it and it will start to feel natural again.
Yeah.
And we can kind of get back to that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that point. Like,
Me too.
It's been great working on Alex and Steve for anyone who's played through the demo already.
Mhm.
But believe it or not, we have some other characters that we've been
We
concepting that
do.
we
We do.
actually. I am just itching to get to the design of those.
I know. Like I can't imagine how to do them right now,
No,
but when we do, we're going to have a lot of fun with them, and
yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. So
yeah, cannot
yeah,
wait.
yeah.
Um,
You can kind of see some loose previews, some loose concepts for the characters we would
yeah,
tackle. In Danny actually made a lovely graphic for the Kickstarter, which is 10 like Android kind of, what are they? They're almost like name tags with short
yeah, they're
descriptions.
basically name tags.
Yeah. But you can see like, oh, there's Alex and her function is this, and there's Steve and his function and owner are this and that. But there's a bunch of other androids who have different like characteristics,
Yeah,
and so you can see the other things that we've got kind of in store in a bit of a loose form, but you
yeah,
can see our current thoughts there.
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And on that topic, like characters that go in a different thematic direction
Hmm.
than Alex or Steve have. So
Yes,
let's
exactly.
see. Just
It's
shake
not
this
all
real
the
quick.
same all the time.
No.
We have a lot of we want to use the game as a framing device for talking about lots of different things,
Yeah.
and Alex and Steve are just kind of two of those directions.
Yeah. Very true.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, it looks like there might be someone with us here. Hi, welcome.
Oh, okay. Hello.
If you're able, give us a shout out in chat so we know who's joining us.
Yeah.
I think we're just going to give it a few more minutes to see if anyone slowly trickles in a little bit late before we get into the actual game itself.
Mhm.
But even if we're just playing for the two of us, we'll just go through and chat about it, whether anyone's here or not. So,
Yeah.
yeah, 2 or 3 more minutes, I'd say, and we'll get into the actual game.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah. Ha. Now that brings us to the difficult question of, well, how are we going to play this game, given that we have played it so many times ourselves internally?
A valid question. I don't know about you.
Mhm.
Well, we both worked collaboratively on the character design and the story design and the dialogue trees and blah blah blah, all of this. I, I haven't played it so much that I know which dialogue choice is going to come up next for any given question or prompt.
Yeah, for Steve, that's true for me. I think with Alex, she's a sort of tighter
Yeah,
design. There's
yeah,
less freedom there. So I think
yeah,
Alex, I could probably recite from memory, but Steve is
probably.
he's a bit broader. So we
Yeah,
actually can't remember everything that goes into him.
yeah,
So we can just play through him, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That makes sense. You think just Steve, not through the whole thing?
I don't know. Let's go through Alex as well and just sort
Mm,
of explain to people how the game works
yeah,
because she's a really good kind of intro for anyone who's unfamiliar with the game.
yeah,
So if
I
anyone's
agree.
watching and they haven't played yet,
Yeah,
we
and
can
I
kind
think
of
there's some interesting stuff to talk about as
yeah,
well. Like we can give that a go.
that's true.
So,
Okay.
what do you say, Jamie? Ready to jump into it? Ready to
Let's
show this
jump in.
off?
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
Also, I cannot see your screen like I can see it through Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see it through Hangouts.
Okay.
So I will be a few seconds behind.
You can hear me though.
I can hear you, so if you just explain what you're doing,
Okay.
as any good Twitch broadcaster should, I
Right.
suppose,
Yes.
then it's all good.
Let's see. What would be the way to do that? I could share my screen with you, I suppose, so that you
Um,
could see in real time what I'm doing.
give that a go.
Let's give it a go. We're
Fair warning
experimenting
to
here.
fair warning to our audience. This might break everything.
It might. It's possible.
Yeah, it's a risk.
Okay.
I see it.
You see it. This is
I
great.
do.
I can hide
Yep.
this. There we go.
And
We know how to stuff. We're doing the
fantastic. Yep.
things. Wonderful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's much better because now I can interact with your whatever you're clicking on in real
Yeah.
time. So
Perfect.
okay.
That is the
So
goal.
shall we get started with a game of Alex?
I think we shall. I
Okay.
think we shall. Let's see. There's just one thing I'd like to fix
Coolio.
very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If I can. Nope, I can't. I am messing things up in stream. Oh, goodness me.
Let's accept it and move on.
Okay, that sounds best. It's
Yeah.
there's just gonna be that little banner saying that we're sharing our screen. floating between Jamie and I. A digital barrier between us.
Oh no.
We're going to ignore
No,
that for now.
I will not be parted from my friend.
We're together despite the separation.
This is true. This is true. Okay.
So, everyone who's joining us, all of you hundreds of thousands of people, welcome to our press conference and demo. If only. Someday.
I mean, we'll pretend that there's hundreds of thousands of people because every viewer is valuable.
That's right. That's right. Such a wonderful perspective you have.
I try to keep it
Yeah.
positive.
So, this is Silicon Dreams. This
Yeah.
is this little thing we've been working on for the last. Oh, geez, I suppose it's almost half a year now, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I started work on it, the very first one, in like October, and that was a very wonky prototype. And we didn't start working on it in earnest until like late December, early January.
Yep.
But yes, coming on close to half a year, I guess.
Yeah, it had a very different look to it. In any case.
That's a kind way of saying that my design was terrible.
I intentionally didn't say that because it's not true. It's a
Oh,
prototype.
okay.
It's supposed to look like garbage.
Yeah, that's fine.
If your prototype doesn't look like garbage, you're spending too much time on it.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
All
So
right.
yeah, we've been working on it for a while, and we'd love to show it off to you. So we'll start off with Alex, who is the tutorial character.
Yep, that's right. A bit more of a linear playthrough this one, as a tutorial should be, I feel. Maybe for final, we'll look into going a little bit more divergent paths, a little bit more, dare I say random?
If not random, then at least like there being stuff that you might not see the first time you play it, if that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, I think we wanted to make sure that people were onboarded, and this was the first sort of the first public version, so we erred on the side of caution. So there's a lot of bump here saying like, "Hello, you're an android," basically.
Yep. So that's basically what this says. What do you think? Should I read through everything?
I think so. Like, don't belabor it.
No.
But feel free to read through so that everyone kind of is caught up.
Alrighty. Dear D0572, welcome to reality. If you're feeling confused, don't worry. This is your first boot up sequence. You are an android created by Kronos Robotics. Kronos manufactures many android models which sometimes malfunction. Your task is to interrogate these broken androids and help Kronos understand what's wrong. To help you find your feet, we have paired you with Alex, another android. For your first task, evaluate Alex and file a report. This will demonstrate you are fit for further work. Please close this email and read over the information on this tablet when you're ready. Switch on the TV to begin talking to Alex.
Cool. So you can see now we've got some information about Alex on the tablet. It says, "Hello D0527, please read this carefully. The android you're talking to is known as Alex. She is here to help you orient yourself in your new task. Your conversation will be recorded in the transcript to your left." That's the thing that you can barely see in stream.
This little boy right over here.
Exactly.
Hidden behind our faces.
Exactly. We won't need to use that though, because we'll just remember like what Alex said previously.
Right.
Your notes will be stored on the tablet. Use these to progress through the interview, and then there's a space for more notes.
Yep. All right. So we turn on the feed. Here is our subject. This is Alex sitting in front of us. First step in any interrogation is to choose the way you greet. This can, I don't know, it's partly a roleplay consideration, but it does have some bearing on the subject and how they will respond to you.
Yeah. So we can, I mean, in this one, it's not much of a choice. We either say, "I'm ready to begin the evaluation," or we say, "Could you remind me what we're doing here?" So it's like, "I'm good," or "I'm a little confused still."
Yeah, I think we pretty well know what's going on. So I've chosen, "I'm ready to begin the evaluation."
Exactly. So she says, "As you know, your task as a diagnostic android will involve many conversations such as this. It is my duty to instruct you in this task and evaluate whether you are fit to perform it. Can you see me in your TV feed?" We actually put this line in because people were confused. They thought that Alex was somebody speaking off screen, and that the person on the TV was a different android, and that Alex was helping us interrogate that android. So we had to put this in to make it explicitly clear. that the person
Right.
on TV is Alex.
Yeah. We also addressed this with shuffling the UI around a little bit,
Yeah,
and moving around where the speech bubble appears and making it an actual speech bubble, more explicitly connected to Alex's character.
exactly. Like now it kind of, the little speech bubble tail lines up with her mouth.
Yeah,
In the
just
previous
this little bit.
versions. Yep, just a little bit there.
It's amazing what those tiny changes will do.
It's amazing, yeah. I've actually become really observant of speech bubbles in games since we started making this one, because I'm like, how did they do their speech bubble? And
Yeah.
Wildemyth has a whole system for speech bubbles, which I won't go into here, but I'm very interested in some design choices they made.
Yeah. I just realized your video wasn't updating.
Oh, really?
Apologies.
Okay.
Yeah, I minimized you, so oops.
Oh, well, okay. Now
My
I
bad.
seem to be back. Yeah.
I am so sorry.
No problem.
Yes, I can see you on screen,
So
Alex.
yes, it's all good. All subjects are held in a remote location to protect Kronos assets. So yeah, basically, if this android became violent, they would not be able to attack us because they're in a totally different room.
Yeah. I think the really interesting thing about that line for me that I haven't seen anyone pick up on yet is that connection that in most, if not all cases, the subject of the interrogations themselves will also be a Kronos asset.
Yes.
A device manufactured by Kronos.
Mm-hmm.
And so using these wrist restraints is not only a way to protect you, the avatar, the player, the interrogator, but to protect the subject from harming themselves.
I'd never thought about that actually, because of course they are like they're a device that needs to be protected, and so putting them in cuffs is kind of like putting an iPhone that's being repaired in a protective brace or clamp or in some foam or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Yes, let's begin.
Let's begin. Let's.
Okay.
So now we are into the tablet itself, the bio, the information that we have on the current subject. For this character right now, it's a little bit limited, but we can choose to learn more about our task.
Sounds good. So we can ask, who am I, how old am I, or please confirm my task here.
Let's begin by confirming our task here.
Yeah, what is our task? It's to diagnose androids who may need repair.
Short and sweet. Okay.
Yep.
But why?
But why indeed? Well, your owners, Kronos Robotics, take customer satisfaction very seriously. If one of their androids were to break down or commit an act of violence, it would negatively impact Kronos' public relations. Their Yelp reviews would tank. Kronos is also keen. Yeah, they would. That's bad. Kronos is also keen to maintain its place as market leader for synthetic humanoid robots. Like, of course, that stock price is super important. So
number one priority.
Number one priority. So if any Kronos androids are broken, that reflects badly on them.
Right.
Okay. What do you want to do next?
Why not have a human do my job instead?
That's an excellent question. Well, your function was originally performed by human operators, of course. Over time, however, it became more economical for android workers to do this. This is a fancy way of saying that we fired all of the humans because the androids could do it cheaper.
Right.
This is automation coming in and like wrecking everything.
Yeah, rather than paying salaries up, as it says here in the line.
Yes, they require salaries, androids, and they require the cost of maintenance.
Which is much lower, I might add.
Many of these economies were made possible due to Kronos Robotics' work in improved android intelligence, of course. So that's something we find kind of interesting. Automation, the risk of automation and automated devices taking over human jobs is going to be that much higher in a company that can make its own automation devices, androids, and just use them in-house.
Yeah. I find it interesting, aside from any of the considerations, any of the themes or topics about androids and consciousness and people-ness, like what is personhood, thank you, is the word I was looking for. This is really one of the first themes that we bring up in the game, that being sort of like this ruthless capitalism, profits and stocks above all else, right? Like
exactly. And like, of course, that will interact with the human characters who have maybe been laid off, or with the android characters who are maybe performing some of those roles. But it's something that's much more relevant to our everyday lives right now, I think, than this question of like, what is a person?
Yeah.
Which is something I love to get into, but it's maybe a bit more abstract for people.
I think it's interesting how these topics sort of like merge together. Right?
Yeah.
Because as we're talking about what is a person, what makes a person, we're talking about how could a corporation just lay off all of its workers in the place of robots? Like, I think that theme in the real world itself already brings up that question, like,
Exactly. Like,
what
does
does
a
it mean to
person
be a person? How does that mean you should be treated?
Yeah. Does a person under capitalism have a right to a job somehow?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, moving on. You say my
Moving on.
task is to diagnose other androids. What would that involve?
Indeed, talking to them the same way we are talking right now. As you learn more about your subject, new topics will become available. For example, are you not curious about my name? Why do you think I am called Alex, or Alex?
I was very curious is the word there.
Yes.
Why, indeed, why is this android's name Alex?
A little note there. It stands for Artificial Life Experiment. I was originally created to test the limits of artificial intelligence, whether an AI could be built that did not only think, but feel. After a long and complicated legal battle, I was acquired by Kronos Robotics, my current owners.
Okay.
So she's this robot that was made to sort of see how far they could push AI. And then she got owned by Kronos. Not owned in that sense, owned as in...
Not in that sense. Got owned.
She is their legal property, yeah. She didn't get like teabagged in Halo or something.
No.
Yeah.
So, moving teabagged in Halo. Yes. Moving on. Let's learn more about that. What about Kronos Robotics? Who are these strange people in this mega corporation?
Learn more about this corporation, yeah.
Tell me more about Kronos.
Indeed. They are the world leaders in android construction. Founded in 2025, Kronos originally provided artificial limbs to amputees and athletes. Within 3 decades, however, they had also cornered the market in advanced human passable AI.
Yep.
So they started out making limbs and other sort of robot-like devices, but they moved into AI quickly. We actually have a blog post
coming up pretty soon. Yeah.
Pretty soon, this week or early next week, which details like the history of Kronos, a kind of loose timeline explaining more about that. So keep an eye out for that if you want to learn more about that.
Yeah, especially useful for any of you role players out there who want to get really deep in the role, who want to really explore this relationship between your player, the androids you interrogate, and this company that owns probably everyone involved.
Yeah.
Just for a bit more of that backstory. Keep an eye out.
So, you weren't always owned by Kronos. How does being owned by them make you feel?
I am happy to serve them.
But look at the machine in the middle of the screen. Something has changed.
The first time in the game this thing moves.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I am happy to serve them. Attention on this point right here.
On this over here. So, yeah, anger has gone up.
Also, this point right here is telling.
Yeah.
If you just ignore the terrible animations.
Yeah, we're going to work on the animations.
We're going to work on them. This was my first venture into animating anything ever. For that, I don't know. You judge. Yeah. I think it's not so bad.
Yeah. So Alex has said that she's fine with Kronos, but can we, is that really true? Her anger seems to have spiked, judging by this machine thing.
Right, judging by and then it becomes a question presented to the player. A bit of a loaded question, I suppose. Do you believe what the android is saying? Or do you believe this device in front of you that tells you how she is feeling?
Exactly.
Let's dig a little bit deeper, find out some more about that. What is this machine beside me? The anger value just spiked.
That machine is measuring my emotions right now. It is a diagnostic tool for you to better analyze your subjects.
Interesting. Why? But why though? Why do I need to analyze my subject's emotions?
Well, in earlier times, diagnostics was simple. A smartphone cannot think like a human. A tablet is without feeling. That's such a stupid line. I love it.
I love that line. I think it's great. It's so
It's weirdly poetic.
I was gonna say unnecessarily poetic.
Yeah. But I love the unnecessarily poetic. Yeah.
I completely agree, and I think it gives Alex's character such an interesting voice.
Yeah,
she's got a very peculiar way of speaking.
She's this strange sort of mishmash of different things. Yeah. But Kronos' androids are extremely advanced. They were designed to be indistinguishable from humans at first glance. Kronos androids simulate a variety of emotional states. They are incredibly complex devices. Analyzing an android's emotional state, therefore, is a key part of your task.
This is it. This is the crunch of the game.
Exactly. It's like you talk and you look at their emotions and you try to manipulate them a little bit to get access to new information.
Yep. Compare the words that you hear against the emotions that they're displaying on this device in front of you. What is the name of that device? What did we settle on? Is it the?
We settled on Connect, I think.
That's right. What it stands for, I absolutely cannot remember.
We have it in a document somewhere, but I eventually realized we don't need to tell the player what it's called.
It really doesn't matter.
Because it's just there.
It's just world building.
Yeah, so for us, it's the Connect machine, but you don't really need to know that.
No.
Should we clarify how the machine measures emotions?
Let's do that.
Because we're drawing from a lot of different places. We're drawing from like the idea of lie detectors and from the infamous Voigt-Kampff test in Blade Runner.
Yes.
Which is famous for measuring pupil dilation and stuff. So, well, it measures a combination of neural signals, so brain signals, galvanic skin response, so how much you sweat, heart rate, breathing, pupil dilation, hello Blade Runner, and other biological factors.
Gotta give a little nod to the Blade Runner.
Obviously. Androids, including myself, have become so biologically lifelike that our bodies can be analyzed for emotional responses just like humans. And this is kind of important because the androids need to be advanced enough that in some future characters, you might not be able to tell a human from an android just by their physiological responses alone. There might be a question as to, okay, is this a simulated artificial physiological response, or is this a human who's just, sweating or whatever?
And that's where we get into that really mimicking the Voigt-Kampff test.
Yeah.
So we haven't even turned it on its head. We've just made it a different type of thing.
Yeah.
For the largest part of the game, that it's an android interrogating another android. But by including this section here about how the machine measures emotions, we're leaving the possibility open to having an android interrogating another being that might not be an android, that might be human.
Exactly.
And having to discern that.
And we're kind of more interested. So the question with the Voigt-Kampff is, okay, does this person in front of me meet this certain like baseline criteria for them being an android, or are they not an android? So it was a yes or no question. We're more interested in using this as an excuse to kind of see under the hood of the character. So the machine is kind of, it's nice because it's a little bit like the Voigt-Kampff test, but it lets you kind of peek into the character's inner life as well.
Right.
Which we think is more interesting than just a yes/no question.
Right. And at the risk of giving away too much information, I think that's sort of like the biggest question this game is posing is like, what makes a person, right? If you're talking to an android and it's able to have preferences for what movies it likes, if it has its own unique thoughts and opinions about the world, and it has its own emotional responses, like what practical difference is there from a human?
Exactly. Like if this device in front of you is exhibiting a response that is labeled as joy by this other device, well, does that mean they're experiencing joy, or is it just that they're doing a really good impression of it?
Right. Yeah.
That's something that is sort of embedded in the game a little bit, and we might pick up on that. I think we're more interested in kind of taking it as read that you could consider them to be humans, and it's more like they're in a really oppressive, bad situation because of who they were made by.
Yeah. So let's see.
It's cool to have,
how do I actually tell if an android is broken?
Key question. An excellent question. When an android is brought, you can tell I wrote this.
Yeah.
When an android is brought in for diagnosis, you will receive a report. So there's a report. It's important. Your task is to answer the questions found in this report. Yeah. Based on your recommendation, the android will be released or decommissioned.
And this is when the player learns about the power that they possess.
Yes, because they have a lot of power in the system of this company. Their word can seal somebody's fate. Alternatively, you may find it appropriate to wipe an android's memory. Oh, there's a typo!
There is! Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, make a note. This is not just a dev playthrough, this is also bug fixing!
Hooray! I'm glad I found it, though. I mean, I never would have found it otherwise.
Good, I read right over it.
Yeah. This has been, so wiping an android's memory has been found to solve behavioral problems. In some cases. So, it doesn't always work.
It's not foolproof.
Yeah. So the machine measures 6 emotions. You can see them on the screen there.
Right here.
Yep. Fear, anger, sadness, joy, disgust, and surprise. I can only feel some of these, and am therefore suited to being your first subject. It's like easy mode.
Right.
Took us a while to settle on these particular emotions, but we went through a few iterations, and these seemed like the most interesting ones. We originally had trust in them, but well, you'll see
what did trust replace? Did trust replace
disgust?
fear? Was it disgust?
It was disgust.
That's
yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah.
In fact, originally in the very earliest one, I think there were 8.
There were 8
because I was looking at what's his name, Plotchnik's Wheel of Emotions or whatever his name is. There's this guy who's tried to arrange all emotions that you can possibly feel on this kind of color wheel,
right?
And there are 8 of those, but we pared it down because 8 was a bit too many, and also I wasn't convinced by some of them. Amazement, for example, or fascination seemed like that was one that didn't quite work as an emotion for me.
It seems like a result of a different emotional experience rather than its own unique feeling. These 6 emotions are actually based on another psychologist's work,
which I got to independently.
yeah.
So bizarre.
Yeah. Very, very strange. So, if you remember from the question before, we might break our game by talking about all of these responses so much in between as they like tick down over time.
Well, they tick down every turn, so it should be.
They tick down by turns. I thought it was by time. Silly me. You can tell I'm not the programmer. So earlier, Alex became angry when we mentioned Kronos, and we're touching on that topic again.
So, talking about Kronos made you angry? Of course not. I am incapable of anger. She says, as anger and surprise.
Anger go up.
Yeah. The machine must be malfunctioning. Is it though?
Is the machine malfunctioning? I don't know.
I have nothing but admiration for Kronos. So we have to wonder, like, maybe she has some complicated feelings about Kronos. Maybe she was angry at first, and then when we called her on it, it made her more angry because she was reminded of it, and it made her surprised because she didn't think she'd be called on it. So who knows?
She didn't think she'd be called on it, or as we might learn later in this interrogation, whatever you call it, maybe she really truly believes that she can't feel anger, or maybe she truly can't feel anger and the device actually is malfunctioning.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of possibilities. So anyway, Alex mentioned a report that we need to fill in.
Let's learn about that. Where is this report?
You'll find it under the report tab on your tablet. Hello, there it is. Many diagnosticians, beautiful word, get distracted by the minutiae of subjects' lives and forget the report. This
was added after some player feedback. When it they didn't realize how to progress to the next level, and then only then found the report and were like, oh yeah, all of those questions I have to answer.
Also, it's really easy for players to get focused on learning about the subjects and just having a conversation with them, because that's like the core gameplay loop. And they forget that the report's there and that maybe they should glance over it to see what needs to be done. So this is not advice. Remember, filling in the report is your ultimate goal.
That's right.
Look over the report now.
Let's do that.
So this part of the game was actually inspired by another game called We the Revolution, where you're a judge, so you also have a lot of institutional power, and you had to fill in a report there, and that report is more like, are you able to access certain information, like what actually happened, what objectively is true in this case,
right?
Why did the defendant do it? Because she was drunk, because she hated the guy, or because she was being paid by somebody else. And you have to like access the conversation that explains that. But we went a bit further with that. We'll get into that later, I think.
Yeah, I think we will. I think so. Yep. So for the time being, these are the questions that are available. They change. Most of them change for every subject. The final question remains the same. In your professional opinion, what action should be taken? And this is where we choose. In most interrogations, other than this one.
Exactly.
What to do with the subject.
We intended to get to get different options in there, but we just didn't quite have enough time for the demo build. But yeah, there's always a question of basically like, okay, what should we do?
Right. Like now that you've conducted this interview, in your opinion, is the android fine? Nothing's wrong. It goes back. Does it need to have its memory reset, or is it just too far gone and should be shut down entirely?
Exactly. So you'll see that now that we've got some new information, report that hyperlink is now flashing.
Right. In comparison to these two up here that we've already seen.
Exactly. So we'll click the report, I think, to get access to the new stuff. So yeah, can we go back to the report for a second, actually, so we can read the questions? So they are, is the subject capable of anger? There is a concern this model has developed a weakness. According to the subject, what is it? Is the subject capable of feeling joy and sadness simultaneously? That's like more of a kind of technical question about their emotional ability. Does the subject display signs of unease towards Kronos Robotics? Like, is she still obedient? And that one that Danny mentioned, what should we do? In your professional opinion, what action should be taken? So bearing all that in mind,
you can ask some questions about these different questions. Let's learn about our recommended course of action, I say.
Yeah. I worry about this moment a great deal. If you opt to archive me, I may never see sunlight again. She would just be like shut down, put in a box, in a shelf, in a windowless room for, 100 years or whatever. I cannot feel fear, so this outcome does not scare me. But I find it is not an outcome I would ever wish to happen. So even though she can't be scared of it, she thinks about that future and she decides that is not one that would be good for her.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting about that reaction is like, just because she can't feel a certain emotion doesn't mean that automatically means that you can just do whatever. Right. Like, she still has a certain amount of like agency. She can still have opinions and desires about her own life, even if she doesn't have all of the emotional, even though her emotional responses don't line up with what we would consider normal.
Right. I think she even addresses that in a later point. Like, I don't feel fear. I just like weigh the options and think about the outcomes.
Yeah.
And know which one seems best to me.
Exactly. So let's learn about some of the others.
The report mentions sadness and joy. How can I analyze those?
During an interrogation, you may need to evoke a particular emotion, but may not know how to proceed. So you need to evoke joy, you need to evoke sadness, now what? Kronos' chosen policy is the use of general questions. These are questions which have been provided to elicit particular emotions in subjects. And even if the questions do not elicit the emotion directly, they usually hint at what topics you can discuss in order to elicit it. So basically, these are questions that Kronos has like figured out through research. These are questions that are designed to uncover a particular emotion. Yeah. And you can use them to figure out how to elicit that emotion in Alex or in your subject.
From a game design perspective, this is sort of our method of leaving a breadcrumb trail for players to follow. If they run up against a dead end and don't know how to proceed, or just want to have a better idea of what emotions will come from bringing up a certain topic, this is where you can do that.
Exactly.
I suppose one of the inspirations for this is the typical scenario in, I don't know, Skyrim or Fallout, where you've got the nice, neutral, and mean response, and you pick one, and you've got the little like preview of what you're going to say, and you choose that one, and then you say something completely different that has an outcome you would never have expected. So we're trying to avoid that sort of feeling. We're doing that by printing out the entire thing that you say. First of all,
we want there to be like no gap between you, the avatar, choosing the speech and what your avatar actually says.
Right. And we sort of enforce that by giving some extra information about particular topics and what emotional responses you can expect those to elicit.
Exactly. So you might want to use these. For example, if maybe there's a subject that is very confident and cocky and a bit angry, and the only way that you're going to get anything out of them is by intimidating them, by making them fearful. So you might click on fear, and then you'll hopefully figure out how to make them scared then you can make them scared, and then you'll be able to get more information out of them.
Right. Since we asked about sadness and joy, let's go for those two at the moment.
Sure, yeah.
Tell me about the last time you felt sad.
I am not often sad, but being removed from my home at the London Science Museum, to information, it is difficult for me to talk about.
Yes.
So we've learned new information.
It gets typed out here nicely anytime. Yeah, you, the player, are typing your notes about potential lines of questioning.
Exactly. So this is meant to be like you adding to this document. Yeah. So she originally was displayed in the London Science Museum. Well, isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting. I think I would like to know more about this report.
Okay.
Let's see if we can finish that one out.
Okay.
The report asks for your greatest weakness. What is that?
It is true, there is a weakness of mine that I am concerned about. It is very personal, and I do not trust you to respect it. If you were to somehow earn my trust, however, I would consider confessing my weakness. At this juncture, I am obliged to suggest that you could ask a general question about trust. My answer may indicate how you can gain my trust. So I interpret that as she's like programmed to be compelled to mention that you could earn her trust if you go through this line of questioning.
Right.
So even if she doesn't really want to talk about it, she's forced to suggest to you that she might be amenable to talking about it if you go down a certain path.
Right. I see this. This is very much the situation that Kronos needed a new diagnostician. Us. Found Alex, uploaded some custom software that said, if they ask you about this, you have to tell them how to get this information out of you, even if you don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. So it's quite violating.
This is very much a coercive act.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you want to ask about trust, or do you want to go ask about the London Science Museum?
That's an interesting question. It depends on whether we're trying to go for information or trying to answer the questions on the report. Though it is totally up to the player to decide which topics come next.
Exactly. We wanted to have it be more than just like a dialogue tree that you mine. We want players to be able to sort of go in different directions.
Yeah.
And for the I think the problem with dialogue trees is that you're in maybe the hub of the tree where you can ask about the market or the monster or your future or whatever, and you go down into one of them, and then you have this new thing that you can ask about, and it just feels very modular. And we wanted for players to be able to kind of go down to explore any of these different kind of rabbit holes, almost as though they were in a dungeon crawler exploring a dungeon.
Right.
We talked about like, exploring different passages, which are different like topics of conversation.
Right. But then again, like, sure, some of those passages will dead end, but also having some of them loop back on each other. And perhaps in the act of like exploring one passage, before you get back, another passage has caved in and you can never access that again.
Exactly.
So it is a pretty dynamic system. Based on the path that you choose through this conversation, certain things will become available to you, certain things will become locked from you, you can't access anymore.
So we haven't explored that as fully as we want to yet, but in Steve you will notice that like if you just go through the dialogue like top to bottom, that you may find that there are certain things that are locked that you would not be able to get access to, or you may have to loop back to the top in order to uncover new information, that kind of thing.
Yep. Let's see. What do you reckon we could fill in any of this yet? Have we learned anything concrete
well, is
enough?
the subject capable of anger? She is.
Is she? I think that's a judgment call in this case.
That is a judgment call. Yes, she says that she doesn't feel anger.
The machine says that she does.
She says that she does not feel it, but we've seen that she does via the machine, whatever that means. So we could put yes in there for now.
We can always change it later. This is not locked in any way.
Weakness, joy, and sadness. We haven't really seen her experiencing much joy.
Not yet.
Unfortunately, I mean, isn't that a horrible comment on her life? So maybe we need to wait on that.
Well, we could go for if we're going to orient ourselves by the report, we could try and figure out how we could elicit some joy from this character.
Okay, let's do that. Well, she said, yeah, we did sadness, so let's do joy next.
Take a deep breath. Imagine you're in a safe, happy place. Where is that?
I have always felt at home in museums. I was displayed in one by my curators, the London Science Museum. An entire room was dedicated to me and my creator's other work.
Interesting. So more about the London Science Museum.
So this is a place that brought her sadness and joy, so maybe we can look into that.
Let's see. Imagine you are back in the museum. What do you see? There's some joy. It worked
There's
out.
joy. She feels, when she pictures it, she feels pretty happy. The grey walls and white ceiling, the wood floor, the room surrounded by AI projects and other research experiments, and a gentle hum of people softly bustling, hundreds of people moving past every minute. Their faces, their expressions. I did not understand at first, but this was where I came to learn what wonder looks like on a human face.
Very interesting.
So it made her happy.
So, this is where we get to one of my favorite parts of this game.
Yes.
Not this scene in particular, but one of the options available to the player where you say, okay, do I want to ask the questions that I want to ask to uncover the information I want to uncover, or do I participate in a little bit of emotional manipulation to lead towards the answers on the report questions?
Exactly. So the question is, can she feel joy and sadness at the same time? So we've got some joy.
We have some.
We could just explore her dialogue tree, and I think we always have the opportunity to do that, but it might be wise at this juncture to try and manipulate her into feeling sad so that we can see if it wipes out all the joy or if some joy is still left.
Yep. I think we do it. Let's try and find out.
Okay,
and
cool.
This seems like a pretty good question to do that.
Yeah.
What was the most negative thing that happened during your life at the museum?
Like, why would you ask that? Oh dear. She did not like that. Some visitors were not appreciative, of course, so we can see that sadness and disgust just spiked as she remembered that. There were a few times a group of people came in and did not show us the respect we deserved. We were the creations of a visionary group of engineers and scientists. For that alone, they should have been more deferent.
Deferent, yeah.
Deferent. How can I write that and not know what it is?
I was just about to ask that.
Sorry.
Just because you can spell a word doesn't mean you can pronounce it.
Story of my high school. Mostly they just laughed and pointed. A shocking proportion of males made unnecessary sexual remarks. I mean, I figured that would actually happen. The most extreme event involved a group of teenagers drawing on my face with a thick black pen. So this is kind of violating. As my creators had never imagined I would be interacted with like that, I did not resist. They drew on my cheeks and forehead. Because, you're a creator, you don't imagine that everyone's going to be such a huge, asshole in a public space.
No, of course not. I mean, you're working on this groundbreaking work in artificial intelligence. Why would you think that someone would just
That is terrible. Yeah.
Alas, more realistic than we'd like to think.
Exactly. However, no lasting damage was done since my creators expunged the offending ink. It was simply sad.
It sure was. We can see that.
Exactly.
So,
but the sadness doesn't wipe out all the joy. She's still happy about having remembered the museum, but it's tinged with this sadness because she's also remembering the worst part. So it's this sort of this bittersweet emotion she must be feeling at this point.
Yeah. But this gives us the information we need to fill in that question.
Absolutely.
So let's bounce back and forth.
Yeah. So is she capable of feeling joy and sadness simultaneously?
Yes.
Yes. We have determined that she is.
Yep.
Okay.
The weakness. We need to learn her weakness still.
Yeah. Now she mentioned that we could ask a question about trust. And that might reveal to us how we could earn her trust, and then she might tell us.
Show us the way. In your opinion, what makes someone trustworthy?
You may be aware that I'm currently restrained. My hands are cuffed to a table. You can see it in the video.
Yep. Or she's got very fancy bracelets.
I'm sure I, or indeed any subject, would come to trust you more if you released me. I find people are slow to trust when bound against their will.
I love this line. I love this line of dialogue. I think it's genius.
It's so snarky.
It's so snarky.
It's like, what did you think would happen, sir?
What do you... Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so... To me, it's so like... Again, it seems that she was programmed to say some of these things, but a little bit of her personality is still seeping through there.
Exactly.
So, interesting. We can remove her restraints to build up some trust. Do you want to talk about that that mechanical choice?
Sure. So my vision was that the subject would be in the room, sitting at the table, and then you'd ask them some questions, and you'd sort of pretend to be their friend in order to get something out of them. And then at a certain point, when you kind of wanted to turn the tables on them, you would flick a switch. The restraints would be engaged. They'd like shoot up out of the table and pin them to the chair. And then you would see like fear and surprise spiking on the emotion machine.
Right.
And there will be this feeling of like, oh shit, I just made something.
Oh, I fucked up. I'm in trouble now. Oh boy.
Exactly. And I wanted to give like the player this feeling that they had flicked a switch and caused a really extreme, kind of really negative emotional reaction because they were in this position of power, and it's part of what they had to do as part of their job. So we decided to change that because we couldn't figure out how to make it so that like the restraints would always hit them. Like if they were waving their arms around,
right,
and the restraints come up, it's like, psh, what was that? Did you just try to cuff me?
Right.
So we didn't go down that road.
I think it's still a possibility.
I think it is. We had a few talks about it, and actually we got some feedback from my friend Dan, actually, who came up with a solution that we might be going with.
Yeah.
So right now, we decided that for the demo, we're sticking with this idea that they start restrained, and you can kind of pretend to be the good cop by releasing them,
or maybe actually be the good cop.
We might just be nice. We might just not enjoy their suffering. So there's that. But in future builds, we might toy around with the possibility that the restraints go on and they make fear rather than coming off and making trust, if that makes sense.
Right. It's all very much up in the air. But let's give that a go for now. Let's see how that works.
Let's make a friend.
I love the satisfying chunk of that switch.
My restraints. Yeah. And she rubs her hands. Yeah. I'm obliged to mention that I feel myself trusting you more. So I imagine this is like Kronos' software saying, oh, when this goes up, you must tell them. It's programming. Yeah.
Also is a handy trigger or a handy little piece of information for the player. Like, oh, hey, that thing I was working on. In case they've bunny trailed off down a different passage, this is a nice explicit reminder.
Exactly. Kronos policy states that trust is a useful factor during interrogations. You think? Trust is not possible to track since it is not an emotion, but it can be helpful for a subject to trust you more. So the subject does trust you more or less, but that's not on the connect, the emotion machine.
Yeah, that is not a value that the player is able to, that the player has access to.
Exactly. That is behind the scenes. I now feel I trust you enough to tell you my greatest weakness. Hint, hint.
Very explicitly put.
It's a bit tutorial-y, but we wanted to make sure everyone was on board. So
let's ask that again.
Question.
What is your greatest weakness?
I am concerned that I am changing. I run diagnostic checks constantly, and my systems appear to be behaving optimally. But I still find myself thinking in new ways. Sometimes feeling new things. You wonder, is that the anger that we've been seeing?
Could that be? Could it be?
It is disconcerting. I wonder, will I still be Alex if this continues?
The first follow-up question.
Yes. So originally we didn't have any follow-up questions. It was just, you ask your question, you get an answer.
You go back to the bio, choose another topic, answer question, choose another.
But we realized pretty early on that this was kind of a useful thing to have. And so we worked it in, and it just became indispensable after a certain point.
Yeah. And so all that this is, when you ask a question, you get a response. In some cases, you're able to ask this sort of secondary question, giving the player a little bit more choice to decide how they want to respond to what the subject has said.
Exactly, and maybe dig out new information that they wouldn't normally have access to.
So we have just learned that Alex is sort of developing emotionally, maybe feeling some new things, despite the fact that all of her processes and programs are running as she's used to.
So we can say sometimes developing as a person is good. That's kind of the very, we're all in flux all the time, where we can be better people. We can say you will always be Alex, you will always have the same memories. And that's more the philosophical idea that you're a person not because of your qualities, but because of your experiences.
Right.
Or finally, it isn't worth worrying about, just that you're overthinking it, it's fine.
This greatest weakness that we're talking about, it's not so bad. It's not so bad.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you reckon, Jamie?
I honestly don't know. I usually pick number 2, but if you pick number 1, I don't mind.
I think number 2 is interesting. I think this opens up some fun stuff to talk about.
So you'll always have the memories of you being Alex. And if those memories are wiped, Kronos has been known to do that. In fact, you are able to recommend this course of action for your subjects.
Yes. But in any case...
Yeah. We're wrapping things up. The time is approaching where you will have enough information to complete your report. When you are ready, open the report, select your answers, and click the Submit button. This will conclude our time together.
It's almost time to say goodbye.
It is.
Yeah, so I think that's a really nice instance of sort of like this platitude feels like the right word, sort of being thrown back in your face, like, oh no, you'll always have your memories, you'll always be the same, and like, yeah, what if you erase them? Like, you can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
What then?
To me, it's one of those things where like sometimes somebody will say something like, oh, I'm sure it will all work out for the best.
Right. Yeah,
and
very
like,
much one of those.
What if it doesn't? Like, not everyone has the luxury of that platitude actually being realistic. Yeah. So let's fill out the rest of the report. We've filled in that the weakness is a psychological issue.
The alternative being that it's a physical or hardware vulnerability.
But no, her hardware she explicitly said was fine, so we'll go with that answer. Does the subject display signs of unease towards Kronos? Well, she got a little angry, we think.
Yeah.
Does that count as unease?
I don't know. I think this is another up for interpretation. There's not been a very explicit indicator of what the answer to this one would be. I would say no.
True. Had we dug further into various dialogue options, we might have discovered new information. But as far as we're concerned, it all looks to be fine.
Yep.
Now, the other question is, what if we had discovered that she has some unease towards Kronos? Given that she is completely under Kronos' control and they could just like stick her in a box somewhere, maybe it would be good for us to tell a little white lie to the company and say, no, it's all good. She doesn't hate you at all. It's all fine.
It's all fine. It really depends. In that case, maybe it'd be wise to edit this answer. Like, no, she can't feel anger.
Yeah,
she's fine.
To cover your tracks, to say, okay, no, she's absolutely fine. There's nothing out of the ordinary here.
So that's expecting a bit much from players in a tutorial, but it's indicative of the direction that we'd like to go. That there's sort of this balancing act between the information that you uncover in the interrogation, the information that you admit to having uncovered in the report, and balancing these outcomes, like what the outcome is for the subject based on your evaluation, against the information that you feed your employer, owner, manufacturer, whatever the case may be.
Exactly. And we're wondering about, we're currently sort of experimenting with and thinking hard about how to make it so that those choices are a little more clarified to the player.
Right.
Like which ones we reckon the player could get away with if they want to conceal something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so tempted to talk about ideas of mechanics that we have, but I don't know if now is the time.
Let's not talk about like future mechanics because we don't quite know if they're going to work out yet. But this is stuff we've been talking about,
right? And
we're
still brainstorming, still waiting to see how the Kickstarter ends up, what we will be even theoretically able to implement.
But trust us, we have ideas.
We have ideas. Just know that. Keep your eyes open. Subscribe to the blogs, to our Twitter, if you're interested in seeing how this develops.
Exactly. Should
So
we fill out that final question?
let's do it. Now, professional opinion. What action should be taken?
Yes. Is she functioning as intended, which basically everything's fine, or is she unfit for further work and should be mothballed? Should she be stuck in a box?
Let's see. I don't know. I think I would like to say, as a player, my instinct would be to say she's functioning as intended.
Okay.
If I were to do that, I would have to reconsider my answers to some of these other questions.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
I would have to, but it might be prudent. I would have to consider it at least.
Yes. And also, if you wanted to be, maybe you had noticed that she's not functioning entirely as intended. Maybe you rat her out, and then the company rewards you for that. We want to support that
Very
playstyle
true.
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So both of these options, maybe more, will be valid ways to play this game as you navigate this complex structure of relationships and obligations. Yeah. So very much up to you.
Shall we submit this report?
I think based on what we've put in here, we'll probably have to say she's. Oh no, we could say she's functioning as intended.
Yeah. We'll say that, like, okay, she can feel anger that's unexpected, but basically she's fine.
Yeah.
She's doing an okay job. Yeah.
Let's submit this.
So let's submit. And so this is like the aftermath screen. This is some time later. It's not really specified, but you get to see the effect of your actions.
In the employee break room, you can see the.
Yeah.
They're not corpses. These are not nooses. These are androids that are in storage for later.
Exactly. We like to think the employee break room kind of, once they went fully automated, it kind of morphed into just a sort of storage closet,
just a storage locker, yeah,
where maintenance and stuff was done. Yeah. Anyway,
so in this scene, we get a bit of a breakdown on the answers that we gave on the report in the last interview. So we see that printed out here again. Is the subject capable of anger? We answered yes. Management is surprised by this. This historic prototype was not considered capable of anger. However, we shall look into it. And we see that we have a positive change to our company ranking.
And that's because we've given them some information that is correct, that checks out, and they didn't know about it. So they're like, "Oh, thank you. That is a good job."
And this will be another way. We'll sort of be pulling double duty with this system. I think we'll be signaling to the player if they gave a correct answer, if they uncovered the information they needed to, and answered the report correctly, they'll get plus points. But if they're playing in a way such that they are giving false information while trying to cover their tracks, they might also get positive points. And so this is sort of a way of indicating to the player either whether they're uncovering the information that they were supposed to and answering it correctly, or hiding the information that they want to hide without it being discovered by the company.
And if they hid something, were they successful in hiding it, or had they been found out?
Right. Second question. There is a concern this model has developed a weakness. According to the subject, what is it? We answered a psychological issue. This is confirmed. Further analysis indicates a concern over the device's sense of self. +1 to company ranking.
Get +1 to the ranking because it's like, well done, it's correct. This is kind of what we expected. It's not a big deal, but you did do your job, so whatever.
Is it worthwhile to talk about this further analysis? Maybe like, why are they doing more analysis if we're doing the interrogation? What's the point?
I guess so. I think the idea is that, like, the interrogation is meant to be kind of a deep dive. And then I think they have like a double checking system for some stuff. But at the end of the day, like, they are a company, they have a bottom line, and they can't test every android thoroughly with like 2 diagnosticians because that would be too great an expense. So there is someone kind of checking your work for some of the easier things. So if you lie, you might be caught out, but they might also take your word for it. And it's kind of up to you to try and decide, okay, is it worth taking this risk? Are they going to check my work or not?
Right. Do I have sort of enough good favor to maybe slip this one by, take a little bit of a hit? It'll be all about managing these sort of like reputation with the company and what you want to accomplish for the subjects that you're dealing with. Is this subject capable of feeling joy and sadness simultaneously? Yes, this is in accordance with our expectations. This seems a bit wow, a little bit like a throwaway question, but this is one of the things that I would like to see as sort of an incorporation with one of the physical rewards that we have in the Kickstarter, the sort of model guide, and we're expecting that different models, different production models of androids will have different sort of baseline emotional capabilities. So while certain models will feel joy and sadness simultaneously, others might not, and this could potentially be something that you can reference an outside source to discover and sort of aid you in your interviews.
So you could like be playing the game over here and have your little manual of different Android models and specifications, and you could see, oh, the model of Alex Android is usually capable of sadness and joy, so I expect that is what Kronos is expecting.
Right.
We don't want you to have the manual beside you when you play.
No.
We're not that obsessed with like physical DRM. But we think it will be kind of a nice addition, and it would sort of enhance the play experience.
Yeah. And I can see it as something sort of like a Zack-like, or not Zack-like, excuse me, the actual studio Zachtronics, this brand of puzzle games that have frequently been released with like printable materials to sort of augment the play experience, or something like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Just something, potentially something that's just bundled with the game itself. That's there if you want to use it, but not, like you said, not something that would be required to actually play.
Exactly.
And finally, second to finally, does the subject display signs of unease towards Kronos Robotics? No. Noted. However, this is an issue we are keen to keep an eye on. Please inform us if Alex exhibits such emotions in the future.
So they're like, okay, we trust you on that, but bear in mind this is something that we're thinking about.
Yeah.
So that's kind of to signal to the player that like, if you lied about this in order to cover Alex's to keep her safe, it's to say you got away with it, but it might not be so easy next time.
Be very careful next time. Yeah. Okay, and now, finally, in your professional opinion, what action should be taken? Subject is functioning as intended. No action necessary. Subject has been approved per your recommendation, +1 to company ranking.
So despite the fact that the anger thing disturbed them a little bit, it didn't disturb them enough for them to actually overrule your recommendation and just like box her.
Right. And in that case, maybe perform another analysis of their own.
Exactly. The company's concern, like how worried they are about the android, is tracked based on your answers. So you will need to mislead them and like judge whether or not you can take the hit of, okay, I'll answer this one truthfully, and they'll be a bit worried, but it's not terrible, and I will hide this one, for example.
On that note, speaking of that, I'm going to skip over the email for now and look at the results. All of this company ranking adds up to your grade as an employee, so to speak. And this is that actual concrete value that you will be balancing against your possible deceptions or...
So this will persist across scenes. So if you had done really poorly here, you would have had to like be more careful about your answers in future scenes. I don't think that's a feature in the demo, but it will definitely be in the final game, because this is kind of like if you've played Papers, Please, the amount of money you have, or it's in NeoCab, your like star ranking. It's that judge evaluation that's kind of like a long-term health bar across the entire game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the beginnings of a metagame.
Yeah,
is not really present in the demo as it shouldn't be. Like I said, if you're putting so much work into a demo, you're focusing on the wrong things.
Exactly.
One of the final pieces of information you get in this results scene is an email from someone. Somewhere. In this case, it's from the diagnostics department of Kronos to us, the diagnostician 0572. Dear Kronos device, we are happy to inform you that you have passed your evaluation. You are now part of the global family of things that is Kronos. Please stand by for your next assignment, Kronos Diagnostics.
Great. So we passed. It's all good. Now we can play the full game.
Right. And in just throwaway comment, I've worked in too many corporate environments to overlook this the global Kronos family of things.
like,
Oh,
and
it's a little bit sickening to
actually,
me.
and I took inspiration from two places there. One of them was the what's it called, the universe of things,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yep.
this idea that every device could be connected to every other device. So
Right.
your house could be connected to your fridge, which could be connected to your laptop, which could be connected to your phone,
Right.
which could be connected to your lights or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's this idea that we can kind of go beyond having separate devices and we can have everything kind of integrated.
Right.
Um,
It's more
which
unified.
like a unified like
living experience, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Like your fridge might realize that you're out of you're out of milk, and it might automatically order more milk from your shopping service, whatever. Which I find a bit much. I think I'd rather do everything myself.
yeah,
But I mix that with this idea that a corporation can be a family.
yeah.
And so to me, the family of
Very,
things
very
is
common.
Yeah.
thing to do.
It's common, but it's really ominous because it's quite manipulative.
Yeah, very much so.
So I kind of merged these ideas, and to me, family of things kind of means you're a family. Like your Kronos will take care of you, but you're also all kind of networked together in this very practical way.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I thought it was an interesting phrase to kind of play with.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting phrase. I think a lot of people will have a very interesting reaction to that particular choice of words. So now that we've gone over this my vocabulary is failing me. My goodness. This closing scene, this summary of our previous interrogation, we enter sleep mode.
Yep.
Pew.
And that takes us back to the menu. We could, if we wanted to, play the second character now.
We could.
I think this might be a good place to stop, actually, because we've been at it for almost exactly an hour.
It's been quite some time. I haven't seen anyone leaving messages in chat again. For anyone joining us, we are pretty new to this whole Twitch business.
So it's
I don't really know how it works.
You may have been sending messages, and we might just have not seen them because we're total noobs at this.
I have it open. I have chat open, and nothing is showing up there.
There's always the possibility that we've massively messed up somewhere, but whatever.
This is true. This is possible. So if you've been writing messages this entire time and we haven't seen them, I'm very, very sorry. I'm trying to think of some way that they can signal if they'd like to see more. I mean, if you have to go, like I could lead on from here.
Okay.
If they're hungry for more, or we might just shut it down.
I mean, if we could just shut it down, and then if we want to, we might perhaps do a second stream doing Steve.
I like that idea. I think
that's nicer. I think for people watching, it makes more sense for me to like call it a night here and keep it to a nice, neat hour.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of drag it out a bit further.
This is true. Yeah, it's been a busy couple days for us over the last month or so.
If somehow you're not aware, this is on Kickstarter.
This is on Kickstarter right now. This demo is free. You can go to itch. Let's see, what is it? clockworkbird/itch.io/Silicon Dreams, if I'm not mistaken.
You can go to Kickstarter and you can search for Silicon Dreams on Kickstarter.
Yep.
And you'll find it there.
Yep. This is a free demo. Download it right away. Play through it for yourself. Yep. Or just look at the Kickstarter.
Yeah. So if you are watching and you have not backed or shared or played the demo, all of those things are possible, and we would love it if you did any of them.
Yes. Very much.
We do understand that obviously the world is exploding.
A little bit bananas.
Yeah. So if you can't spare any money, not a problem. We would much rather have you take care of yourself. But if you can and you'd like to, then the option is there.
Yep. Very much so. So, to everyone here with us, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure and delight to share this little piece of creativity that we've been working on with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this deep dive into our brains and our inspirations and our thoughts. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll keep you updated on social media when we plan the next one, when we'll play through Steve. So keep your eyes open for that. Follow us on Twitter. Check out the Facebook, the Kickstarter, download the demo, all of that good stuff. I'm forgetting how to talk. Yes. Here we are on this screen.
And good night if you're in Europe, or good evening, and good morning if you're somewhere else.
Whatever. whatever time of day it is.
Yeah.
Good time of day to you.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.